was a very well-built building, probably better, given its size and the attention and everything else, much better than similar buildings built today because it was the first of its style. Well, there's a very simple, long box structure built well, according to the engineers who know it. And as we just look at this, there's just one other thing. We have not resolved an answer to this, but Jackie Judd, our correspondent in Washington, has sent me an email just a short while ago, and she really speaks to what's been puzzling enormous numbers of us. We see all of this video and these live pictures of where the towers used to stand, but the question is, where is all the rubble? It seems so flattened. How could so much steel and concrete just vaporize? Did it all turn to dust?
My name is Germ. This is Germ Warfare, the battle of ideas. And I tell you what, this idea requires a very strong drink. And I'm really hoping, Dr. Judy Wood, you don't mind that I have a bourbon while I chat to you, because it's needed. In one of your presentations, when you said, "What is a scientist?" and you had a lab coat on.
Oh, I've got it right here. It's handy if you need it. I'm serious. Let's see. Here we go.
Right. You have a lab coat on, so now you are credible.
My bachelor's degree is in civil engineering, structural engineering, and my master's degree is in applied physics or engineering mechanics. And my PhD is in materials engineering science, which is interdisciplinary, but my main area of expertise has been to observe materials optically and otherwise to determine what's going on. It isn't about building a big structure, it's about figuring out why that item failed, why a particular item failed. So when I saw what happened on 9/11, it was like right up my alley. It's like I couldn't look away. Like, what's going on here? This building, they said it was collapsing, but that's not a collapse. And so when my eyes and ears don't agree, I turn off my ears and just keep looking.
I mean, I remember what happened that day. What were you doing?
Well, I went into campus. Well, the first thing was I teach late at night, so I got up late, and I have a radio that kicks on in case I don't get up, early enough. And it was talking about sounded like a drunk that it was an obnoxious radio station. That's what wakes me up. Like somebody made a wrong turn, went into the towers, and all right, where's the punchline of this joke? The way they're saying it sounded like the guy was up and had too many drinks the night before and just made a wrong turn. And then I went and looked further, and the TV said that this was going on. So I called my mom, who lived near D.C., and they should see fighter jets overhead. She looked out. She didn't see any fighter jets, so she decided I was on to something. There's something weird going on. It's how you're introduced to it that really mattered. So she was quite skeptical. Then I went into campus and went into the faculty conference room. And there they were, glued in front of the TV set, mentally, pitchfork in hand, ready to go get the bad guys. And I looked at them, kind of pointed at the TV like, this isn't a collapse. You guys falling for that? And they looked at me like, what kind of a would we hire? They're already sucked into it. We got to go take them out. We got to take them all out. Yeah, I like to start with this image because, see, this guy thinks he's an expert.
Mm.
He knows about yellow liquid. He's had plenty of Kool-Aid, so he's an expert. He knows this is good. He doesn't know enough to know what he doesn't know. And this says poison on it. So not a good thing to have. And it's big bunch of birds. Which one knows where they're going or why they took off?
But they just took off.
Run with the herd. Yeah, one of them flinched and the rest of them take off. Their survival depends on it, but humans tend to do the same thing. They run with the herd, or deer do the same thing. So it's difficult to not get railroaded into some other story. Okay, here we go. This is building 1. 14 people survived right down there where that arrow's pointing.
14.
Isn't that amazing?
14.
14. After the dust cleared, they looked up at blue sky and they walked out. They weren't crushed to death. They weren't cooked to death.
Goodness me.
This building looks kind of like a drinking fountain. In the Midwest, we call them bubblers. It's just frothing up and out. No solid chunks.
Mm.
So that's a pretty amazing image. That's what really got me, was like, what the heck's going on?
It looks like water.
It's just yeah, like a drinking fountain. Well, is that was WTC1? Is it still standing? By calling it a theory, it raises doubt. Well, maybe it's still there. That's an important feature, and it causes people to think a certain way. It's vitally important to distinguish between evidence and theory. We have evidence that the building's no longer there. That's not a theory. Do you follow? So by calling something a theory, it's a way of marginalizing it and getting someone to doubt the evidence. You can say, like, well, there's this theory and that theory and that theory. Sigh. I guess we'll never know what really happened. That's the idea. That's how you keep the cover-up going. But when you learn what the evidence is, then you know what you know. My favorite phrase, empirical evidence is the truth that theory must mimic, and not the other way around. The buildings are gone. You don't have a theory that they might or might not be there. No, they're gone. That's the evidence. So that's the truth. So evidence is the truth, and there's no assumptions in between. It's just what it is what it is. Like you count how many people are sitting around the dinner table. That's a particular number. That's evidence. It's not a theory. One of the easiest ways to cover up the truth is to refer to evidence as a theory. It increases the doubt. Another is to start with a theory and then omit inconvenient evidence that doesn't support your theory. These are all the easy errors that people make. And a third way is to encourage the wrong assumptions. And if you are going by assumptions, you're not going by evidence. That's what I was saying about the planes. You thought there were planes there, but yet to prove it. You know how Perry Mason would have down to, okay, fingerprints on the gun, he owned the gun, he was holding the gun, and somebody saw him holding the gun. All these details that we wonder why they're going into such detail. It's because it removes all doubt about what happened. This is a view from Bankers Trust, looking out over the debris field soon after 9/11. That's the remains of Building 2 across, right outside the window, right across the street. Do you notice?
Where is all the debris?
That's right. And you can tell the window's still intact. I don't know if you can see my mouse.
Yes.
Right along here, you can see a reflection of the windowsill. And if you had the building, being blown up with bombs, why do you have an intact window across the street? And also, you'd have lots of chunks all over the ground.
The shock waves would have damaged the glass.
Yep. Exactly. And plenty of other things. Also, if the building came down by gravity collapse and came down as quickly as they claim it did, you'd have all sorts of material squirting out the windows on the way down. And all of the adjacent buildings would look machine gun fired. That didn't happen. Now here's George Stephanopoulos.
I'm sorry, Peter, I didn't get the question.
Okay, I apologize. Jackie Judd and several other people keep asking us, when you look at where the towers used to stand, there is surprisingly so little rubble. Where did all the rubble go?
It's a very good question, Peter, and I have asked some people who've been doing some of the rescue and recovery work this morning. If you look behind me, you can see the very remains, the skeletal remains of the World Trade Center. And one volunteer, Robert Gerlinsky, explained to me the reason there's so little rubble is that all of it simply fell down into the ground and was pulverized, evaporated.
Pulverized, evaporated.
Yep. You have to feel for him. He's there to tell the world what's going on, and that's the best he can do.
Wow.
But what he is telling us is there's not enough rubble, and he's quickly trying to explain it. And another thing humans do is ask questions until they're given an answer. They don't stop to think if that answer makes sense or not. But that was the best we could come up with.
Judy, before you go on, can I play devil's advocate and ask you a question? Is it possible that the sheer weight of the building just destroyed the concrete as it was falling?
There wasn't a lot of concrete and there's a lot of steel. But if you have some pile driver, that idea, the pile driver, where's the pile that's driving? There's not much left.
Mm.
And those outer columns of the lobby that you see right in front of us, they're standing straight like soldiers.
And they're not very, then they aren't very thick.
Right. And the center of, in the distance, over in here, that's the stairway B of Tower 2, and that's where the 14 people walked out. They looked out and saw blue sky.
The footage on TV, and it looked like the sky was black.
It was initially. All the dust went up and blocked out the sun. And actually, there's a firefighter who came out of Building 7. He said he couldn't see your hand in front of your face. Everything was dark. He said, but thank goodness the cars started lighting up because then he could see where he was going.
The cars started lighting up.
Yep. That's the cars appeared to go into spontaneous combustion, but it wasn't fire. They're lighting up for some other reason. And he wasn't afraid of getting burned. It provided light for him to walk down the street. But after that dust cloud cleared, then you could see blue sky above when the dust cloud cleared. But initially, those guys thought they were goners. They thought they'd have 106 stories piled up on them, and they'd be dead before anyone could excavate them out. And if it was controlled demolition, that doesn't explain this. There's something that happened. The building mostly turned to dust. All right, got the cover of the book. There's some misconceptions about it, so I thought I'd point things out. This is, where'd the towers go? That's a question that we all should have been asking. And actually, Peter Jennings quit asking after that day. That recording was from 25 hours after the event, but that was the last anyone brought up. And I do remember hearing that live on TV. It's like, oh, good, somebody else is asking that question. I got all excited. And then that was it. Then everyone was, on board with calling it a collapse and whatnot. But this is evidence of directed free energy technology. But you have to see all the evidence. I'm not saying that's what did it. I'm saying this is evidence of it. Just like what happened to Hiroshima. August 6, 1945, that was evidence of a technology for nuclear power plants. I'm pointing out that yes, this was used for evil purposes, but now that it's out there, let's use it for something good. And you look at that picture and say that's some amazing technology. So it's important to know what happened. Buildings mostly turned to dust. And only then can you say how it happened or who did it or why they did it. You have to first define what it is. And the easiest way for a cover-up is to get people to argue about the how. Oh, it was mini-nukes, it was bombs in the building, it was thermite, it was this, it was that. So they're arguing about how, which requires them to assume what happened instead of determining first what happened. That's the importance of going in this order. Because if you start arguing about the how, it's causing you mentally to make an assumption of the what instead of determining what happened. Like those who believe it was that controlled demolition was used, in their mind they see a pile of rubble from controlled demolition instead of looking and seeing what's actually there. So determining what it was that happened is vital. So I focus on what it was that happened, but the rest, kind of falls into place after that.
Yes.
Yeah, can you count to 7? you got ahead of me on that one. Oh, check this out. See, 7 buildings. 7 buildings were destroyed that day.
7 buildings, Judy.
Yep. And see that little pimple there that I circled, and this other pimple? 14 people survived in each of those places. They didn't get squashed. They didn't get cooked.
But almost 3,000 people did.
Yep. Many of them, they didn't have remains to count them, and they were presumably dustified. The dust contained all the constituents of the building, including people. It had organic components to it. And the dust particles, some of them were less than 1/100th of the size of red blood cells. Think of the implications of that.
My word.
It probably crosses the blood-brain barrier. It just goes right in. So here's a close-up of that view. And if you notice over here, this is one of my favorite ones, Building 4, the body of it went missing. Right down to ground level, not below ground. I've got an image, it's in my book, of 1 story down. They have a mall, and here's these rescuers looking for people to save, and you can see what stores there are. Innovation luggage, Hallmark cards. Those are right down in here. But they could walk, right through there. Now this is a peculiar one. The middle of Building 6 is just gone, like it was scooped out. And then Building 3, this is this little blimp here.
And those are all WTC buildings.
Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now 4, this majority of 4 is just gone. You could take a broom and sweep up. There's a little tiny bit in here, but the rest of it, right at ground level, is where it stopped. Just like in Building 6, it's an 8-story building. You can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 floors. So you know it stopped right at ground level. And it didn't go below ground. Now, here we have this toasted bus. What I call toasted, it's toast. It's history. You got to get another one. You can't fix it. It's beyond hope. But notice over on the sidewalk is all this unburned paper. So what happened to the bus? All the vehicles up this road, this is West Broadway, got toasted. This is several blocks north of the complex.
Could it be that the paper floated and landed there?
Only on the bus, but it landed on the sidewalks too. Yeah, the paper, a lot of unburned paper floated through the air. But as for why the bus is cooked looking,
that doesn't look like a fire.
Right, it's something else weird that's going on. But we're just not going to come to assumptions, just noticing. And then between the first picture and the second picture, something happened. Here's building 7. Whoops, got the wrong thing. There's Building 7. It's still standing, so we know what time this is. And then soon after that, Building 7 ended up in a wad on the ground. Notice it didn't even spill completely across the street to the post office. That's the building on the left. It didn't even cover the sidewalk. But between those two times, the bus deteriorated further, or appears to have deteriorated further. Now, if it was a controlled demolition, how does that, affect a bus like that?
Gee.
And here's that bare sidewalk. We were looking from over in this area. That's the post office, and that's bare sidewalk. And notice the highest point in the WTC 7 pile is below Building 6, which is 8 stories tall. And WFC, that's across the street, the World Financial Center. And notice this nice dome here. It doesn't have any dings in it.
Looks perfect.
110-story building across the street just went away, and it didn't clobber WFC2's dome. And where did the inside of Building 6 go?
Oh, yes, yeah. What happened there? Looks like it just got scooped out.
Yeah, just to ground level. And there's actually some firefighters walking through the lobby at that time with their buddies, and some of them, their buddy's gone. And then the guy has survivor's guilt and realizing, he wished he'd grabbed his buddy and pulled him out. He went with whatever happened. And we'll get to it. These are built in a bathtub. And this is right along adjacent to building 6. And this corner of building 6, when they were trying to demolish the rest of the complex, they didn't use dynamite in that because they're afraid of damaging the bathtub wall. So they used cables to pull that piece down. Here's the remains of Tower 1.
Yeah, where's all the
building
rubble?
6 is over here. And we know we're at ground level because there's an ambulance there. And the ambulance doesn't look clobbered. And where's all the steel? There's a few pieces here and there, but this is the aluminum cladding from the building that probably came down like paper airplanes, just fluttered down there. You could walk through. Now this blob in the middle, that's where those 14 people walked out from. One guy said it was like walking out onto a big football field, empty. And here's building 3. This little corner is all that's left of this thing. It's an interesting story that there's a 22-story building. There's a lawyer who was up in the room right in the end. He was preparing for a trial, and he wasn't going to let anything bother him. Nothing was going to disturb him. He heard that there was a hole, airplane-shaped hole in Tower 1 and then in Tower 2, but no, he was going to stay there and finish preparing for his court case. And then a firefighter came across the top floor clearing people out. And the firefighter said as he walked across this top floor, he turned around and the hallway he came through just disappeared. And at that point, when he knocked on the lawyer's door, he said, okay, he's getting out. And they started going down the stairs at this end of the building. And they just had gotten down to here when the other tower went away and the rest of the building went away. At first, when Tower 2 went away, there's a big bite out of the middle of it. And then when Tower 1 went, the rest of it went to leave just this piece. And again, that's the remains of Tower 2. That's it. Right at street level. As for high heat. These guys are, with their cutting torches, have their oxy-fuel hoses draped across the debris field. How hot could it be? I mean, would you be holding an oxy-fuel hose if it was scalding hot there?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
That's what I call fumes. I call that fumes, not smoke. It fumes. We don't know what it is, a chemical reaction or some process that's still ongoing. But clearly, those guys aren't afraid of getting cooked. Nor their hose. And this is an often used photo by NIST. They had this color image supposedly showing the hot spots, and they had a temperature table. And point E right there, that's over here. And that temperature supposedly is 819 degrees right there. Well, a water main broke on West Street and flooded the street. And these firefighters were standing in water. If it was 819 degrees, they'd look more like boiled chicken. I mean, it's not steaming up. It's not superheated.
Yeah, that's pretty hot.
Yeah, it's well over 212 Fahrenheit is where boiling starts, typically. So this image on the left, which folks like to quote, I don't know what it's showing. Some satellite image is picking up some wavelengths of something, but it obviously is not. It doesn't correspond directly to the temperature. And was the dust hot? Nope. These people are covered in dust. They might have had trouble breathing through it. Like this guy on the right, you can see where his tie was.
Yeah, he seems quite chilled.
Well, he's getting out of there. He's getting to go home. Some people didn't get to. I suspect this guy wiped his face off, but it looks like his neck was, tucked into his shirt. But Yeah, the dust wasn't hot. It might have been irritating, but it wasn't hot. It described it as like itchy and chewy on their skins. Now this is a real killer for the hot molten metal idea. This is at the 9/11 Museum next to the WTC. The Bible artifact that's embedded in steel and concrete.
Good heavens.
The pages are not burnt.
That's incredible.
There's a closer picture, and yeah, this is formerly liquid steel. I won't say hot molten. It's formerly liquid. And it's solidified on the page. And you don't see any charring of the page. There's nothing conventional we know of that does that. It's just strangeness. That doesn't mean you ignore this evidence and go on, with whatever. That's what I mean by people who ignore evidence that contradicts their favorite theory. No, you just have to look at all the evidence and say something different happened here. And you see a piece of steel falling, and most of it never hit the ground. It dissolved before it hit there. I like to do this mental exercise. Pretend you're a piece of steel. You're impersonating the steel. And you're going to jump off the roof and trail dust like that on the way down. So you cover yourself with dust and you jump off. But you're not going to, it's not going to look like that. Okay, you need more dust. So let's carry a couple of bags of flour and toss them out as you go down. No, you don't have enough flour to do that. And pretty soon you realize that steel is turning to dust, coming apart. It's very dense, the steel is. The atoms are very packed, but now they're less packed, and so they can take up more volume. How do you explain? That's not dirty windowsills.
Yeah.
That's making that kind of.
Sure.
Now let's look at the ground below. Here's right at the base of building 6, but where building 1 should have been. That little patch of blue sky up there. These guys have just come out of their hiding places, and you can see from the body language, hands on the hips, arms to the side, arms folded. Like, where the heck did that building go? What's going on here? They just kind of stand there, huh? And this unburned paper. You don't see big chunks of material either.
No.
And this particular image is interesting. There's some core columns that remained after the building peeled away, and then they turned to dust and went poof. Now here you have crisp edges, and they become less crisp.
Sure.
If you see the video of it, there's a lot of different images like this. All right, here's building 7. And you know what day it is because building 7's still there. And see, there's not much on the ground in front of us. Tower 1 should have been blocking our view. But what is peculiar is in building 7, you have all this lather, I call it, pouring out one side of the building from roof to ground, and just one side. Fire doesn't do that. Fire consumes one area and then moves to the next, and then consumes all of the fuel there and then moves to the next. And why wouldn't it turn the corner? So it did that all afternoon until it went away. And you wonder how much material is coming out of the building. Because there was very little material left. There was just the outer skin. Toasted car. Toasted as in, you can't fix it. It's done for. But the back end looks like a showroom floor. Nice wax job. And if you had some rip-roaring fire inside the passenger compartment, why wouldn't those lights be getting fried on top? And why did it stop at that abrupt boundary? If the doors open, you'd have flames it was conventional fire. You had flames lapping around. That didn't happen. What I've thought of is you have the rubber gasket that seals around the door. Maybe that kept something, from going from one side to the other. But detractors say, "Oh, but it got towed." Well, that doesn't explain it being kind of weird. Plus, there were lots of cars. There was over 1,400 toasted cars in southern Manhattan that day.
1,400. Wow.
Yeah. And folks say, well, it was right at the base of the tower and thermite sprinkled on it. Well, thermite wouldn't do that. Plus, how do you get 1,400 cars at the base of the towers? It just doesn't happen. But here we have where we know where these cars were, because here they are before they got toasted. That's the Embassy Suites parking lot. And make notice of these vehicles here. Now, this car is black. Until I saw this picture, I thought it was white, because afterwards it looks white.
When was this photo taken?
That morning. People were making a run for it out of the towers and out of the buildings around there. That's why there's so many people there. It was the towers were fuming away and hadn't gone poof yet. See, I can't use the word collapse, but the poof, they went away. And these guys are just making a run for it there. And here it is right afterwards. These toasted cars. And here's that one that was black. And seems like the same make and model was having missing engines. But there's not enough data to really clearly say what, got some vehicles and not others. Now, when towers were built, we're getting to the bathtub. And, prime real estate. This used to be the old shoreline over here. And they had the path trains, the ones that went under the Hudson. Trains used to come up and turn around here. And they changed it to put them inside here. But I think at the time they were constructing it, the path train still went in here and around and back out. But it's about 7 stories down onto bedrock where they start building the towers. And you have the Hudson River right over here. And that's water level in the West Highway. So that line is where the wall is of the bathtub. Here's a diagram I sketched or drew that you can see where the West Side Highway is, and they built in some, the WFC complex over here, but still that's where the bathtub is. It's a deep bathtub, and here's that wall that they'd moved it to when they built the towers. And here's the original line. So all of this is underwater. So what do you think if 2 500,000-ton building slammed down onto it? Those are like dikes. That it would destroy them. Here's the top view, and that's where that line is I'm drawing. Those other buildings they're built on infill, just because real estate is expensive there. And they have the path trains that go under the Hudson through there and around the big bathtub and back out. There was 7 buildings that were destroyed. Not much else. Now, Baker's Trust got infected and they repaired it and then later took it apart. Same with Fiderman Hall, which is up in here. But that was sometime later. They repaired it and they took dust samples and saw it was still disintegrating, and so they had to take it down.
The entire building?
Now, here's the bathtub. Yeah. Because once they repaired it, it was just rusting away. It looked like it'd been at the bottom of the ocean for 100 years after they repaired it. That's in my book, if you wanted to see that. Now, this is the original bathtub wall. You can see it's weathered and whatnot. And that puddle in the foreground, that's the absolute base of where Tower 1 was. And you can see that from the parking garage in the distance. This is, all the way down. And that bathtub wall was not destroyed. Now, they did have some damage that started to occur when they brought in earth moving equipment. and the earth-moving equipment was causing more damage than the destruction of the buildings. Figure that one out. So they had to set up new rules and have big platforms to spread out the weight, and none of the earth-moving cranes could be within X number of feet of another one, and they had to be so far from the wall, and all sorts of rules they set up. But because they were starting to destroy things, but the bathtub didn't spring a leak. You didn't have all of southern Manhattan flooded because the path trains empty right into there. So the seismic chart. Now, as this reads you go from left to right, but Tower 2 has already gone poof, and here's Tower 1. And then you had various quarry blasts that it picks up. So you know the thing is recording. And you get down here and you have this Fox Islands. It's near the Aleutian Islands, a little tiny earthquake there. But what you're not getting is that was the demise of Building 7. It didn't really register.
Good heavens.
It was like on the order of a jackhammer. You wonder if there's any material left. This is 5 different recording stations for Building 7. During the demise of Building 7. One of them, this 4th one, they couldn't even pick out anything from background noise. Notice they calculated when the S and P waves should have arrived, but they couldn't detect it. They could only detect surface waves. And I have the 6.4 seconds. That's how long it would take to drop a bowling ball off the roof of the building, have it hit the ground in a vacuum, just the minimum time. And the surface waves are in general less than that. But there's no S wave or P wave, only surface waves. And you have to really strain to be able to see that there's anything out of background noise. It's a 0.6 on the equivalent Richter scale. Now this is the controlled demolition of the Kingdom. It lasted for 52 seconds, and it has S waves and P waves and surface waves. See the little snout that leads up to the big wave? That's the P wave. It's the first to arrive. S wave arrives later, and you probably learned in school it's the difference, the lag time between those, depending on what material it's going through, it'll tell you how far away the epicenter is. Like if you have the snout is real long, it means the epicenter is further away than from the station. Okay, and then in Manhattan, Midtown Manhattan, earlier that year, January 17th, 2001, there was an earthquake. And you can see it has these snouts leading up to the big disturbance, and the disturbance takes a long time to dampen out. And that's the same recording station as recorded the demise of the towers. But you see it has very high frequency signals in there. There's the S wave, P wave, and surface waves. This is what happened during the demise of Tower 1.
They're further apart.
See a snout leading up to it. Yep, it's only surface waves. No S wave or P wave. So think of when you get off your mattress in the morning, you get up, the mattress bounces back. If you took a 500,000 ton building and lifted it up and chucked it in outer space, that ground would have to be bouncing back and be bouncing back and leaving a surface wave. But the big catch here is that that's 8 seconds. It takes 9.5 seconds in a vacuum to drop a bowling ball off the roof and have it hit the pavement. That is, the building shook for less time than it would take for a piece of something on the roof to fall, much less having to fall through all of the material that's below it. There wasn't enough time for the building to have a gravity collapse. Now, compared to the Seattle Kingdom and looking at the potential energy of that was a 2.3 on the Richter scale. Tower 1 was a 2.3 and Tower 2 was a 2.1. And Building 7 was a 0.6. So going by that, if you, for example, for Tower 2, if you dustified all but the bottom 16 stories, just turn all the part above into dust and dropped that bottom piece to the ground, yeah, it would do that, but it would you would get the other waves, but it would give you a surface wave that would generate a 2.1. It should have been a lot bigger, the equivalent Richter scale reading. The Richter scale reading was equivalent to a 16-story building.
That
And
is
for
incredible.
It could not have been controlled demolition to do that. You'd have all that, controlled demolition blows chunks. Those chunks go bang on the ground. And check out building 7. It's like the bottom 2.5 stories. If all the rest turned to dust. Okay, so it's important to determine what happened first. Because if you were gung-ho on saying controlled demolition, you would just omit looking at this evidence that we just saw. If what I'm saying is bogus, fine. People see it's bogus and walk off. Why do you have to keep them from seeing it?
Mm.
And in January 2007, I was still kind of naive about this underhanded stuff, and somebody manipulated me to being in a certain place and time, and then someone else stuck microphones on me and wanted to do an interview. And it wasn't even a presentation I made. It was one that somebody else made. It was Jim Fetzer said he was going to be presenting my work and wanted me there to answer questions. Now, it was a setup. He didn't want me there to answer questions. He wanted me there to get for the entrapment. I called it an attack interview. And they had a camera showing the side of my face and had me looking red and weird colors. And the other person they had looking, slick and all. And they carefully edited it and prepared it so that when I was saying that the buildings mostly turn to dust, and the guy rolls his eyes. So people who saw that say, yeah, isn't it silly that she said the buildings mostly turn to dust? And that kept people from looking at that evidence for how many years? And that is amazing how easy it is to cover stuff up. Whoever organized that video making did so for cover-up purposes. No other purpose.
Sure.
So it's important to look at what happened. Yeah, most of the buildings turned to dust. Dust went up. It's something I didn't bring up here, but I wanted to see how far up the dust went. And I got some weather images, and wait a minute, that's a hurricane there. Did you know there was a hurricane right up the edge of Long Island? It was raining there. It was raining on Cape Cod.
There was a hurricane.
The hurricane. Yeah, Hurricane Aaron for 3 or 4 days. It was aiming straight to Manhattan. Pulled up to a stoplight, stopped, and then that afternoon turned around and started heading out of town. So again, if you start working on who did it and why they did it, the hate us for our freedoms, or the implications of it, before you've determined what it is, you're fixing to mess up. And especially whenever they get people arguing about how it happened. And these are patterns that are in common with a lot of things. I've said lately, I'm sort of jumping here, but the mask wearing argument. That's like the airplane argument. Planes, no planes, whatever, real planes, fake planes. That distracts people away from the building mostly turned to dust. Mm. And the mask wearing is the same kind of thing. It's a distraction away from what really matters. And this poor guy, and what's wonderful about this is you notice on the clock it's about 14 minutes after 10. So Tower 2 has got a poof, but Tower 1 is still standing. Look how fine this dust is. He kicks it up and it stays aloft. And he's pretty clear from the knees on up. If it was settling out from whatever happened, how could it settle out that quickly, that fine of dust?
Mm.
And when he kicks it stays aloft. It makes you wonder if coarse dust landed and then became fine dust. There's quite a few pictures that imply that. Poor guy, he's got his briefcase. He's heading home after a tough day at the office. And well, that's about it for what I have. One of my favorite lines. Know what it is that you know that you know that you know, and know that everything else you don't know. Don't substitute assumptions from missing information. Why would there be dustification? Well, people wouldn't believe it because most people just believe with the multiple choice test. It keeps people arguing, but the one benefit is if you have this truth movement that likes to promote controlled demolition, conventional controlled demolition, thermite or bombs or whatever. And as you've seen from this evidence, it can't be those things. So if that's the dominant presentation out there, okay, let's have an investigation. They investigate and show that it's false. Yeah, win-win. It's an explanation that won't go anywhere because it's false. It's just like saying, I know that person stabbed that guy because I saw him buy the knife and carry the knife home. It turns out the body has a bullet hole in it. So it's impossible to prove that he stabbed the guy and left a bullet hole. And there's also David Henshaw, who heard something happened to the North Tower, and so he zipped down there because he's a photojournalist, and he was standing at the base of Tower 2 and hears this funny noise like a gas pipe leak, or that's what he described it as. And he's looking around, other people are looking around, they knew what it was, and then he saw an explosion right above him in Tower 2, and he's got a picture of it. And he didn't see it playing, he just saw an explosion, and also didn't leave a wake vortex either. And then, okay, people said it was an airplane. All right, I'll take your word for it. It was an airplane. That's what the sound is. And then less than an hour later, he hears that same high-pitched squeal again. Okay, now he believes it's an airplane because that's what he was taught. So he gets his camera up and gets ready. He's going to get a picture of it this time. And through his viewfinder, he saw the building turn to dust. And he turned around to make a run for it, and then he got picked up, carried a couple of blocks.
Okay, so building 7. That's one of the big talking points for many people. Was that also dustified?
It looks like it got dustified all afternoon. You saw that stuff pouring out of one face of it, from ground to roof. And soon before it went poof, it started coming out the other side too, of the let's say the east side.
Mm.
But it was only the two sides.
But you can see the video footage of it where it starts going downwards.
Oh, right. It's the outer shell. And from the seismic and so forth that there wasn't much material there, and also from the pile left over. There's a video of a woman getting interviewed on West Street, Barbara Crowley, and she's getting interviewed saying, oh, they need food, they need water, and then the audience, this crowd that's around there watching, suddenly gasps, and what? She couldn't see. Right behind her, Building 7 was dropping. The audience saw it, but she didn't see it, so she didn't know it was happening. In other words, she did not hear it. It was whisper quiet, the demise of it. And you compare that to a controlled demolition where you hear a bang, 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 and then the building starts moving. That didn't happen. One thing I will say, though, is, let's say, that I'm saying that the bombs in the building is just an alternate story. If you don't like the official lie, you give you a plan B. If you swap out 19 bad guys with box cutters did it with 19 bad guys put thermite in the building or put bombs in the building, everything else stays the same. No other implications. You ever think about that? But showing off this technology, maybe they didn't want people to see what this technology can do.
There's a crystal ball, Judy, in front of you. What do you see?
In terms of what? It depends on how badly people want to know the truth. The truth is so important. The truth has consequences, but running from the truth has even more consequences. And that's an important thing to remember. So, knowing what the truth is vital, not what you want the truth to be. And it's a really important thing. So depending on how many people can get on board with that is where it's at, I think.
Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
My name is Germ. This is Germ Warfare, the Battle of Ideas.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please please visit supportjoe.com.